Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings. I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. I'm back again at FantasyLabs doing another model preview this week for the Quicken Loans National. Obviously, we're coming off the big U.S. Open week, but still have a relatively decent field. Not star-studded, obviously. A lot of the big names did take the week off or over in Europe, but still some really good golfers and an interesting tournament. And obviously, there are a lot of different things going on at DraftKings and a lot of great fantasy contests to participate in. So without further ado, let's dive into the model. And first, we're going to look at the sliders. So actually a pretty nice model here in terms of the plus minus it created for back testing. So pretty happy with that. And I think I have a pretty good model here. Not the easiest course for course fit. I did go a little bit more weight on the bombers, but basically kind of put together something I think is going to make a lot of sense and hopefully will yield good results this week. So we have long-term adjusted round at 25. That's pretty common for those of you who watch a lot of these. I'm always in that range. It's just a great metric to kind of evaluate who's underpriced or who's a good value on DraftKings. I have long-term driving distance at 5. And then scrolling down, I have long-term birdie score at 10. So this is an adjustment that I've made. I'm really starting to hunt birdies even more so. I was always looking for them, but now I am all over guys in birdie stats. For instance, I talked about it a couple times. Justin Thomas was huge for me last week. Even though he shot 8 over, he did lead the field in birdies. So then I have recent adjusted score at 3. And really where I capture the recent form is recent green regulation score. And again, long-term adjusted round, recent GIR score are a huge part of my model every week. I just think it makes so much sense. You get to see over time someone's adjusted round, and then if you want to capture current form, who's actually striking the ball well, I think this is by far the best stat to do that. Takes away some of the variance in putting and just really shows, okay, these are the guys who are striking the ball well, getting it off the tee, and then putting it on the green in regulation. I have recent driving distance at 6 points. I have recent birdie score at 6 points. Again, really hunting those birdies. And then I have course adjusted round score at 10 and nothing else weighted. So I think this is a pretty reasonable model. As you can see, it backtests well. I put my main two ingredients, which is long-term adjusted round and recent green and regulation, into the model. And then I had a driving distance and birdies, essentially, and with a couple other things. But I think this is a pretty nice model. And at a course where course fit's a little tricky, I like what this is spitting out. So Hudson Swafford, number 1. He's a guy that I really like, especially when you factor in driving distance. He's always up there, one of Colin's guys. Speaking of which, Brendan Steele, who we both talked about as our favorite top-tier player. I love Brendan Steele this week. I definitely will have a lot of exposure to him. Robert Garrigus at the next guy. He's a guy I normally struggle to take. I mean, you look, he definitely has the driving distance, and when we don't weight accuracy at all, he will tend to pop more, but he really struggles with the accuracy. Still a pretty nice play here. I think I will have some exposure, but he's definitely a tournament play. And that's kind of one way I differentiate tournament and cash game plays, is just seeing, okay, is there any weaknesses in the game, and is there something I should be worried about? You know, we look at his game log, he's been solid, but he did have that stretch where he missed 3 consecutive cuts, including the Puerto Rico Open, which is a very weak field. So there's a lot of inconsistency there, but definitely a nice tournament play. Byung-Hyun An, Colin talked about, Charlie Hoffman. These are both good plays. Ryan Palmer. All of these I have no problem with. Charles Howell makes one of my favorite elite plays in the mid-tier range. Scrolling a little bit farther down, Finau, Colin really likes, which I think is fine. There's a lot of guys here that I think are relatively okay. Patrick Rogers, Colin talked about on the pod. I think he's a nice punt play. I really like Ches Reavie, who doesn't weight as well in this model. And other models I've made, he's ranked as high as 1. You know, he's a really accurate golfer who doesn't hit it as far, but I think that Ches Reavie's a really nice play. He's been awful lately, so especially in tournaments, I'm definitely gonna have a lot of exposure. But you can see this; he's missed 5 out of his last 6 cuts. But his long-term adjusted round is still relatively fine, and the nice thing is we now get him at that range where we like him at 6,700. Streb is an interesting punt play. This is a guy who used to be great relatively, but he's kind of faltered. But there is some semblance of form, especially in terms of his green and regulation numbers. So I think I'm going to have some shares potentially sprinkled around, especially if I make a lot of lineups. Just going through, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jim Furyk. He's a little too expensive for me, but he's definitely looks like he's back based on the U.S. Open. If he starts stringing together a lot of made cuts in a row, we know we have the Jim Furyk of old. Ricky Fowler, I'm sure, will be a popular play. We talked about him on the podcast. I like him, but I think I'm probably not going to go him in cash at this point, but we'll see. It's tough paying $12,000 for him. If I do like some cheap guys, but I don't love too many cheap guys. So I think he's fine, but man, the stretch is bad, and I would love to play him in tournaments. If I knew he wasn't going to be super heavily owned and people were just going to react based to his recent performances in game log, I'd take a ton of him in GPPs. But the problem is everyone's going to own him because it's Ricky Fowler. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it here, guys. I mean, you can scroll through and see some of the other guys that are ranking here. Patrick Reed and Lovemark, I like those guys. Reed's really expensive, but I do like him, and I really like Lovemark. I think he's a great option here. Drives the ball well. Does have an accuracy issue, so he might be more of a tournament play as well. But yeah, he's interesting. And then I guess I'll end it here where the guy's not rating well, and certainly just from a data perspective, it's hard to love Bryson DeChambeau, but I am in. 2 made cuts in a row, starting to find it a little bit. Not sure exactly how many starts he has left on his exemption, but he's definitely a guy I think is a nice play here. So love me some Bryson DeChambeau just long term, and I think I'll have some tournament shares for sure of Bryson. So hope this is helpful for you guys. I think the model is really good. Maybe my player analysis wasn't as on point, but I'm still trying to decipher some guys that I really like. I definitely like all the guys at the top of this list, like I mentioned. And I hope you guys have a great week. As always, looking to see more Fantasy Labs subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.